So if you've watched Big Ten media days or any media days, there'll be the moderator will give an introduction and the coach will walk up and he'll have the opening statement. What if every coach got to pick their walk-up music?
They should.
They should.
There's another little subtle thing you could do to differentiate yourself.
This is a July topic. I love it.
Make
18 walk-up songs.
Okay. I'm going to have a campaign. MMDM. Make media days matter.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to be the have coaches pick their walk-up music. Give them a little identity.
And you know what it does? It leads into a great question when you first get to, you're the first 2 or 3 that gets the microphone handed to you and the camera goes over to you. You get to tell your affiliation. You could say, all right, so you had Enter Sandman. Explain, please. Because if you know it's not necessarily the tunnel walk song for the various teams or what they have as an entrance, if it's something maybe that motivated them in football, maybe it's just something that means, maybe it's something that the team is into.
Well,
there's always a story behind it. And aren't those things a little bit more fun to learn about than the typical cliches that are going to come out about any type of season and what you're going to do?
Well, this would be the scenario. Idea. This would be the scenario for if this was the case for the Big Ten media days. Rule today gets announced, and all of a sudden on the speakers in Lucas Oil Stadium, AC/DC Back in Black fires up. And so one of the questions is, Coach, why was the selection of AC/DC yours? He said, well, do you know Nebraska football, young journalist? And the journalist will say, yeah, Tanner Lee.
The last great quarterback.
And Matt Rule will go, well, let me tell you something. We have a thing here called the Black Shirts. And I don't know if you noticed this last year, but of everything that went wrong, something went right was the defense. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be better on defense. So we are back in black. And then let me go a step further. Young journalist, are you familiar with Brian Johnson? And the journalist is going to say, backup Braves catcher? And Rule politely will say, no.
So much
lead singer with AC/DC. Mm-hmm. And when I was on a recruiting trip, when I was recruiting at Baylor, I walked in to a little hole-in-the-wall bar in San Marcos. And none other than Brian Johnson was in there, sitting at the end of the bar.
With Angus. Just there.
And then we talked about, wouldn't it be cool if you had a center that was named Ben Scott? Because we have a former frontman, rest in peace, Bon Scott.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was like...
He had a good time on his way
It was
out.
like, I could...
See?
Yeah.
See? These are the stories that you could get from each walk-up experience. You're damn right.
Big AC/DC fan here. Thank you. So I heard this discussion yesterday on this fine radio station. If Nebraska is projected 8th, what does that mean in terms of a record? But before you answer that, Mr. Nick, can I call you Mr. Nick?
Nick or the, yeah.
That's where I was thinking.
Nick the what? Bachelor party, folks.
Daily occurrence over here. Okay, so this has turned into the Mike Riley Day on the show.
We thought it was going to be Nebraska Day, but it's actually Mike Riley Day.
Since Mike Riley became the head coach at Nebraska, Nebraska football has played 9 seasons in the Big Ten. Mike Riley's second year, they won 6. Do you know, and then I'm going to give you, 2021 was a little bit of a rough conference season. Don't know if you recall that or not.
Yeah, a little bit.
Nebraska went 1-8. Mm-hmm. So 9 seasons since Mike Riley has been the head coach at Nebraska. When he started in 15 to Matt Rule last year.
Yep.
7 of those 9 seasons in the Big Ten, Nebraska football won exactly 3 conference games. Won 6 in 16, won 1 in 21. Even in the COVID year, they managed to get to 3 and stay at 3.
Yeah.
So the question becomes this. Is that really what Matt Rule has been talking about in the offseason, is chasing 3? Because that's what Nebraska football has become, is winning 3
chasing
conference
3
games.
Conference wins.
That's another question that I hope my fellow journalists will ask today. I kid because I care.
And the most recent episode came out last night.
And if they win only 3 conference games this year, Big Red Overreaction will never go off the air.
No. It'll carry right into Monday.
We will drop the names of our shows, and we will just do Big Red Overreaction if Nebraska only wins 3 conference games. But back to the question. If you were projected 8th in an 18-team league, what's your record supposed to be?
From a conference record standpoint, if you're 8th, I feel like you are probably 6. Probably 6 conference wins, right between 5 and 6. I get the feeling with where that middle tier is right now, I'm pushing more towards 6 conference wins. Now, when I think of Nebraska finishing either 7th or 8th, I think as I said, you're probably closer to 5 conference wins, or I'm sorry, closer to 6 conference wins than you are 5. I think you're closer to 8 total wins than you are 7. So I think that probably is an 8-4 season with 6 conference wins there.
I think projected.
Yes.
Well, now I just did the math. So you got Nebraska going 2-1 in the non-con?
Oh, no, I'm just saying if you're
watch out
8th,
for those UNI Panthers.
I'm just saying if you're 8th, it's probably sitting right there between the 5 and 6, but probably more likely the 6 because I think there's going to be a log jam there.
I think projected 8th in a. Hey, Georgia Southern got Nebraska. Anything can happen.
Remember the next day?
What happened on
Very
that?
well.
Next day,
the NFL season started.
Well, actually, yes. The Bears and Niners are playing in a slop fest, and I was scrambling to figure out how we're going to cover that.
I think you're right. I agree with you. I think if you're projected 8th in this conference, 8-4 sounds like the record.
Mm-hmm. Which, that is the number I think a lot of people realistically, again, tangibly, have entertained for Nebraska.
Big words there.
Yes. Because I think when we have these conversations...
Scrabble, you could get a bunch of points with the words you just used.
Yes, maybe. It'd probably be challenged.
I think board games should come back, but continue on.
Yeah.
Instead of playing Scrabble on your phone, I think we should sit down as families and spin the Scrabble board.
You know what? Any brewery that's worth their salt, they actually have those board games. Most breweries, they'll have the board games because while you're drinking, you play board games.
I'm very particular in my board game. I don't want to be touching other people's board game because you don't know what they've done with that board game.
I saw Chutes and Ladders at a brewery in Michigan. That was really exciting. I haven't played Chutes and Ladders forever. But anyway, I think that if you're having that conversation about the projections for Nebraska, you've got to differentiate if everything goes well, because nobody wants to have that conversation until Nebraska gets away from being a 5-win team. But if you look at the schedule, roster, everything that, again, is tangible with what your eyes told you from last year 1 of Matt Rule to what can be in year 2 with some upgrades in certain areas, that it is a tangible conversation to say, boy, 8 is definitely within reach. But I'm not willing to go beyond 7 because that's where I'd like to see that improvement play out on the field. But I think that's the conversation that people have. Now, when you start getting into 9, that's where I think you're probably getting away from it a little bit. But from where, you think about that, though, that's a difference of 1 game. If we're in agreement that 8th in the Big Ten is a record of 8-4, which obviously you would take, that's a huge jump from last year. You're right on schedule, and maybe in some cases a little bit ahead of schedule. But more than anything, you took advantage of what you needed to take advantage from a schedule standpoint. That sets you up for 25. You get to 9. I mean, my God, of course you're going to take that, but I don't know if that's tangible. To me personally, I don't think it is, because this is where the eyeballs need to see a lot more.